Okay, I'm here with Kristal Eng, who's in the data science, data wrangling course, and I'm here to talk to her about her project. Kristal, tell me a little bit about in 30 seconds or so, what your project is, what's the main research question, and why you chose that.
So the main research question for my project is about literacy rates and whether the education standards for like teachers affect how affect literacy rates in a country. So that's the main topic
Yeah, and why did you choose that topic?
because um it's kind of related to what I'm doing in another class right now, where we're learning about how like international economics and how um some of the challenges that are faced by developing nations and how we can the situations in those developing nations. And it's just something I was curious about because developing nations tend to have like lower literacy rates. I was wondering like if education standards are changed in terms of like policy, or we can advocate for like changes to help push that because the literacy rates they can improve that and which can eventually improve these countries.
Let's look at.
No one that really. I like all of it because it's kind of like a beat built down. So like from the intro, so like the first one, it starts with like how the global literacy is like, and then how it has shifted across the years. And it went on to this is how it has been moving like based on the regions. And then this is whether so for this one, I actually didn't split it out into like years, but just in general, like whether you have like they have like specific teacher training. So by specific teacher training, they refer to like whether they require not just like a general, but like specific. For example, if you want to teach math, you need to have like specific like education in math.
This is for secondary teachers, like high school.
Primary and secondary, so early education. So it has not, it's only for early education. So high school is not included like in this. This is specifically targeting only primary and second. So I think it's from year 7 to like when you're age 7 to like about 15.
Okay.
That's usually like that about the age range. So it's just whether they have like specific teacher requirements.
So each dot here is a country.
Mm-hmm. Each dot is a country and like so this one is for people when they don't have like maybe they don't have any formal requirements or they have like okay if you have like any degree or education like we're gonna hire you. But for this one it's small. If you want to teach math, you must have completed like certain level of education specifically in math.
Yeah, yeah. And so if I'm a decision maker looking at this chart, what do you want me to see, or what are the takeaways?
So the main takeaway is that for teachers, for those countries that have like specific teacher education requirements, they tend to perform better in terms of literacy rates. And also there are less deviations because you can tell like the graph, the box plot for those without like the requirements, it's a lot wider. So the range, it can be really good. There are countries who don't have the requirements, but they're also performing really well. They have really high literacy rates, but it also ranges all the way down to like less than 20%.
Yeah.
But for those that have the requirements, it's more consistent. They're constant, like they tend to show more consistent, like
So there's a
rates.
correlation there, but I don't know if you could say causation because
Yeah, it's not causation.
But there's many countries that have that extra requirement, but
Yeah,
that's still
it's not
not great.
causation, but it appears that there might be a correlation.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so
talk us through maybe one more.
this is how it has changed over time, like the requirements of the nations. So, and then,
And can you speak more to that? Like,
so this is just in general, like the number of countries over time, like whether they have, so it just shows how a lot of them used to move from a lot of them go from like no requirement to now being most of them having
Oh,
specific requirements. So that's like now the standard. They want like teachers to have certain level of education before they get to teach.
what do you think happened here, year 1900? That's an odd trend in the graph. You see a similar one, looks like about 1980 something.
Well, I'm not really sure about this part. I haven't really like done much research into this, but I guess this is probably when um a lot of nations start developing, like in getting industrialized. And this part is more of 1980s. This is also when nations start I think it's usually when nations start getting more industrialized, especially in like regions, specific regions. Then a lot of them would probably start to do a lot of reforms.
Yeah, in fact, they all go up. The no requirement, the generic requirement, and the specific requirement all go up. Looks like in that same year.
And then this one is the current. So as of year 2020, this is what the requirements are like in the different regions. I group them into like income group. So as you can tell, a lot of the regions have specific requirements for teachers. However, there are still regions that have who only have like general requirements or even no requirements, and they're mostly concentrated in Africa. And you can tell that most of them are in lower income groups, countries in lower income. So Africa has the lowest average literacy rates, while Europe has the highest. And Europe is dominated by high income countries, while Africa is dominated by middle income or just low income.
Yeah.
So just by looking at this, like one thing we can do is mainly because we want to talk about like developing nations and how we can help them. And there are many ways to help them, not just through like trade or like immigration. But one thing is also when we put like when people in like these countries they advocate for like stricter like standards in terms of like who they're hiring to teach like the next generations, they can possibly like it's not a causation, but there is a correlation that if you have like higher standards for the teachers that you're hiring, you can possibly improve the literacy rates of the next generation. And when you improve the literacy rates of the next generation, you can potentially improve their future
Yeah.
and shape the way that economy grows in the future.
Improve
It's for like the long run.
Yeah, improve their economics, their socioeconomic situation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kristal. That's very interesting and excellent work. I appreciate you sharing it with me.